The judgment given by the Honorable Supreme Court during September 28, 2018, actually it gave way for bringing a serene temple amidst a silent forest into limelight. Because it is so unique and so different temple. And the best part is, I'm about to talk about the temple rituals and traditions. But the best part of the case, the entire case was filed, argued, or judged by people who had no clue where Sabarimala is located, even in the India map. That is the best part actually. Because last 9th of January, I went to Delhi for another program and I met Srimati Prerna Devi, who actually filed the case. And she told me she has been totally misinformed about the entire scenario and she was forced to file the case, and later she realized she has made a big mistake. And she actually decided to withdraw the case, but the Supreme Court did not allow to withdraw the case. That was the scenario actually. So now coming to the basic history of Sabarimala, that has to be understood very well before entering to the traditions and rituals, because it is totally confused in the media and even in the books that are available. Coming to the history of Sabarimala, who is Ayyappa? Is an incarnation of Lord Shasta. I will first enter into the Puranic area, then come to the traditions. Ayyappa is an incarnation of Lord Shasta. Who is Shasta then? That has to be made clear before understanding the traditions. So we know the basic history, that is the Puranic episode of Mahavishnu taking a Mohini avataram, and there is a union of Shiva and Vishnu's Shakti, and there is an incarnation of Lord Shasta. It is not Ayyappa, it is Lord Shasta. Let us be very clear on this. It is a manifestation of the Lord. And as per the story books available, what we are told, the child is born and he is abandoned at the banks of river Pamba, which is not right actually. He grew up at Kailasha. He formed his own world called Tejavati, and he had two Shaktis, Purna and Pushkala. Lord Shasta took 8 different incarnations, out of which one incarnation is Manikandan, which was to annihilate a demoness called Mahishi. Again, while naming the child as Manikandan, in most of the pictures and drawings, it depicts a child with a ringing bell, which is wrong again. Mani is Navaratna Manimala, the jewel. In Sanskrit, Mani is Ganta. It is not Mani. Mani in Tamil and Mani in Sanskrit is different. We have a state called Manipur, which is called land of jewel. So it is Navaratna Manimala actually, but in most 99% of the pictures and drawings and old depictions, it is shown as a ringing bell which is tied to the neck. Manikanta became Maniganta. So this child was named as Manikanta. And he, after destroying the demoness Mahishi, he decided to stay forever at the present Sabarimala and immerse in yoga. So as instructed by the divine will, he was installed there by Parasurama, because it is Parasurama Kshetra, and he sat there in penance, and he promised to open his eyes and give darshan once a year. That is where the entire problem lies. Once a year, that is on Makara Sankrama day. Thus came the Sabarimala temple. So it is Shasta who incarnated 8 times, and the 8th incarnation is Manikandan, and that Manikandan is installed there at Sabarimala as Dharma Shasta. Each Shasta is given a different name, and he is called Dharma Shasta. And it is Agastya Maharishi who gave the present rules and regulations which we are following, that is the 41 days penance, Brahmacharya Vratam and other things, which a devotee is prescribed to follow before going to the temple. It's entirely given by Agastya Maharishi. This entire information of Sabarimala temple and Parasurama installing the deity of Dharma Shasta and Agastya giving the rules is given in the Brahmanda Puranam, a portion called Bhutanatha Upakyanam. Unfortunately, the only textual backup of Sabarimala temple is Bhutanatha Upakyanam, and we don't have the entire portion of Bhutanatha Upakhyanam. It is available only in bits and pieces and palm leaves. Probably I am trying to get the entire, at least the major portion of the book, at least for the past 20 years. And we are, at least by this year, we'll be getting around some 60 to 70% of the book. Probably we can try to publish with the whatever that is available. So, right from the Puranic age, the temple was there, temple was existing, and it was opened only for the Makara Sankrama day. And right from those days, it was only men who went to the temple, and women could not go to the temple due to the strict practices that was prescribed. And not only Shabarimala, there are so many other Shasta temples where women and even men till the age of 15 or 16 are not allowed till date. There are so many other temples. I am not going to that subject. But anyway, let us keep it in mind that Shabarimala temple was there from time immemorial. Centuries after this Puranic episode. To be precise, somewhere around the 10th century, the Pandyan dynasty, due to their internal disputes, moved from the Madurai, and they set up their base camp at various places in Kerala. In those days, there was no Kerala or Tamil Nadu or something like that. It was entire single this thing. So the Pandyan kingdom had roots with the Kerala sides, and so they got settled at places like Achangovil, Punjar, Pandalam and other places. And the historical records say that around 904 AD, the Pandyan dynasty took refuge in Kerala. So, they had a previous connection of worshipping Shasta at Shabarimala. This point is very important, that is being recorded by Kottarathil Shanguni in his book Aidhigamala. Aidhigamala talks about the legends of Kerala, where it is very clearly mentioned that the Pandyan kings of Tamil Nadu used to visit Shabarimala and used to worship the deity quite often. And just because they have now settled down in Kerala, it was easier for them to have access to the temple and worship the deity. So this was the scenario. And the kings of Pandalam accepted Shasta as their family deity along with Madurai Meenakshi and started worshipping him. At this point of time, this temple was popularly known as Dharmasastha Kshetram, and not as Ayyappa Kshetram, it was popularly known as Dharmasastha Kshetram. So around 10th century, few dacoits who were troubling the local villagers, they destroyed the temple and they set the temple into fire and broke the idol. At this point of time, a historical prince whose name was Arya Keralavarman, he took birth in the same Pandalam family. Fortunately or unfortunately, he was fondly called as Ayyappan. That led to all these confusions. This Arya Keralavarman, I will call him as Arya Keralavarman to avoid your confusions. This Arya Keralavarman, he took the initiative and he was born out of the chief priest of the temple and the princess of the Pandalam royal family. His father was the chief priest and the mother was the princess of the Pandalam royal family, and this Arya Keralavarman dedicated his life to rebuild the Shabarimala temple. And while writing the history, these two both personalities got confused. And it is a very clear statement. There are so many Ayyappan songs that have been sung in Kerala, and surprisingly most of them are in Tamil, Chase Tamil or Kodun Tamil, what we say. In one particular song it is given, Kalathayotti Varigintra Makara Sankrama Yamamadil, Pandalarajan, Vanpadi Tharetti, Malai மீது ஏறி இறங்கி நடந்து சபரிமலை நாதனை வணங்கி வருவேன் என்று சத்தியம் செய்தால் இப்போது வரும் எதிரிகளை கொல்லத்தான் சிரமமே இல்லை. So if the king is going to promise that he will be coming to the temple regularly for Makara Sankramam, I will help you in winning your enemies. That is what the assurance given by this Arya Keralavarman. So he undertook the task of rebuilding the temple, and the temple was rebuilt. And after that, at the end of the Pratishta, this Arya Keralavarman, he merged with the deities of Dharmashastra. And people have a belief that he is an incarnation or a manifestation of Lord Shasta himself in order to rebuild the temple. So a lot of confusions are still going on today because of this personality confusion, and people mix up all these Puranic stories and historical stories, and suddenly a Muslim personality comes inside a Puranic story called Vavar. Because Vavar will be there, Parasurama will be there, Shiva and Vishnu will be there, everybody will be contemporary personalities. So as a matter of history of this temple, originally the temple of Manikanta Shasta or Shasta in Yoga Sankalpam is installed by Parasurama. That is what is mentioned in Bodhanatha Upakyanam. So we have a proof that the temple existed long back, and historically, this temple called Shabarigiri or Garudadri, the initial name, the Giri means it is a hill in Tamil and Malayalam, has been under many fire attacks, and the Vigrahams were reinstalled quite a number of times, not twice or thrice. To my knowledge, it is around 10 to 11 times minimum. The Vigrahams were reinstalled at Shabarimala, and we had a stone inscription relating to 978 AD. It mentions about one Prabhakaracharya, not to be confused with another Prabhakaracharya of 1900s. It is an older Prabhakaracharya reinstalling the Vigraham of Shabarimala temple. Yes, this was the inscription. It was there actually originally, and it talks about a sloka starting with Samina Basmanayana Prayadina Prabhavati Bhagyavachat Krupalaya Prabhakaracharya Karapradishtito Magane Vashatu Buri Mangalam. And if you decipher the sloka using Katapayadi Sankhya, it gives you the common era of 978. And this particular inscription was there in Shabarimala at least till 1960s, and it was removed and was there in Devasam Board office till for another some few years, and now God only knows where it is. Just because with few photographs we could decipher the slokas and we could understand that it was there at least. Yes. And coming to the traditional families associated to Shabarimala, we have the Tantris and other priests of Shabarimala, and the Velichapads of Shabarimala, the royal Peta Sangam called Alangad and Ambalapura Peta Sangam, and other families. Coming to the Tantris, traditionally it is believed that the Tharaman Tantri is the person who's the chief supreme priest of the temple. But the Pandalam family and the other records claims that apart from the Tharaman family, that there were two other families which had the tantric rites of Shabarimala, that is Kurikad Illam and Ambalapura Pudumana Illam. But subsequently, those two families, they stopped coming to the temple for some reason, and Tharaman got the absolute right for installing or doing the tantric rites. Similarly, the male Shantis of Shabarimala, as we see today, was not by appointment. It was from a specific family. They were called Kakkedath Illam. The Kakkedath Illam was the permanent male Shanti of Shabarimala, at least till 1950s. The Jayantan Nambudiri, who is supposed to be the father of Arya Kerala Varman, belonged to this particular family. And the interesting fact is, in those days, it was very difficult to come to Shabarimala, and I think some record says it was annual salary of 7 rupees or something. Just 7 rupees. So even they found it very difficult to come to the temple every year, because you'll have to risk your life. In spite of all these difficulties, you'll have to travel for at least 10 to 15 days and then come to the temple, do puja for 2 days and then return back. This was the situation. But there are few remarkable incidences from this Kakkedath Illam. Apart from Jayantan Nambudiri, there was a fire in Shabarimala in 1903, because during a Magaravalakku festival, as a part of celebration, they were burning the camphor, and the spark from the camphor led to a very big fire accident. During that time, one Raman Vasudevan of this particular family, who was the male Shanti who was worshipping the deity, he single-handedly removed the idol in order to save him, and he just jumped into the Bhasmakulam and stayed there for 2 days. And in such a dedicated manner, that family was serving the Lord. This continued till 1950, and that Kakkedath Illam was serving as Meshanti, and during 1950s the Devasam board was formed. Needless to say, the first thing they did was to check out the traditional family of Kakkedath Illam from Meshanti post. Due to a small misunderstanding, then the Devasam board, they found this as a lucrative thing, and they started appointing Melshantis. Even during those times, there were very few takers. Because of the inhospitable terrain and conditions, there were very few takers for the post of Melshanti. In those days, it was not like what we see today. It is not a fixed tenure. The Melshanti, once appointed, can stay there for the temple, in this temple as a Melshanti, till he wishes to retire or till he passes away. That was the situation. And there was one Vadakkedath Ishwaran Nambudiri. He became the Melshanti during an unfortunate event in 1950. A vandalization of the temple, which I will be talking about later. After this unfortunate incident, Ishwaran Nambudiri took charge, and he served as Meshanti for 4 years, the chief priest of the temple. And it was he who introduced the singing of Harivarasanam in the temple while closing the shrine. Not as believed by many, it was not a Puranic this thing. Harivarasanam was written by one Mr. Kulathoyar, whose family is still living in Chennai. It is a news to so many people. Their descendants still they are in Chennai, and he wrote the Harivarasanam text, and it was a shloka. It was not. It is a lullaby to Lord Ayyappa. It is a shloka, and Ishwaran Nambudiri introduced the practice of singing Harivarasanam around 1950-51. Then, somewhere around 1960s, there was an increase in number of aspirants for the chief priest post, and the tenure was fixed. And in those times, the Melshanti or the chief priest will complete his worship at the temple, his monthly puja, and then return back home. This was the practice. During 1995, February 18th, one Vishnu Nambudiri, he was invited to a prayer at Nilakal Church. He completed the monthly rituals, took the key of Sabarimala, and went to the Nilakal Church, which became a very big controversy. And from there on, they decided the Melshanti will stay at Sabarimala itself till his tenure of 365 days. So everything happened only with the reason passed, and not much. It's not a very old tradition as projected. So only from 1995, the Melshanti became a Purapada Shanti. Purapada Shanti means he stays there for 365 days. And again, the priest family, as said, was originally, the Tandri is from Thalaman Illam, and the Meshanti is from Kakkedath Illam. And the Devasam board interfered and made it as a appointment. Now coming to the Velichapad, previous one. The Velichapad again. Velichapad is a term generally used in Bhagavati temples. It is actually, as my previous speaker was telling, is about the invocation of deity in one's human body and acting as an oracle, which was a unique phenomena, and that was there in Sabarimala. That was the best thing. And recordically, we have information about Sabarimala's Velichapadu from 1874. From 1874, the Veliya Velichapadu is called as the Veliya Velichapadu. He used to sit in front of the deity. There was a mandapam there. He used to sit in in a wooden plank, and he used to convey the satisfaction of the deity after each puja. So this was continuing at least till 1989. And the second person whom you see is Kottarakara Hariyar. He passed away in the year 1944, and there was a vacancy for the post of Velichapadu. And again, Devasam board interfered, and they wanted to appoint a person whom they can favor. But Bhagavan's will was totally different, and Bhagavan chose the third person, who is Palai Bhaskaran. He passed away in 1989, and with that, the role of Velichapadu is no longer continued in Sabarimala. Yes. Now, coming to the traditional practices that are unique to Sabarimala, few practices which makes the temple unique. They were talking about the religious denomination. Sabarimala is definitely